Hey everyone, this is a tutorial on how to install Python and how to use Python for the first time. So just go to your browser and we're going to install Python with Miniconda. So if you just Google Miniconda, the first result should be the official Miniconda documentation website. And Miniconda is essentially Anaconda, but really reduced down to exactly what you need, right? And within Miniconda, you get your Python installation as well. It also comes with a command prompt that just works right out of the box, which is really, really nice. So Miniconda can be downloaded on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And you can see on the left-hand side of these columns, you have the Python version, you have which architecture you are installing on, in Windows at least. And for Mac, you also have this and Linux as well. So with the Python version, basically just install Python 3. I would recommend installing the latest one. Python 2 isn't supported anymore, right? So in Windows, there's two types of architecture, 64-bit and 32-bit. If you're not sure what architecture your computer is, just search 32-bit and you'll see this system settings blurb will come up. See if you have 32-bit or 64-bit version of Windows. And you can see on my computer, we have a 64-bit operating system, right? So in my case, I will install 64-bit. Perhaps in your case, you may need to install 32-bit. So essentially, just click that and see if you go to downloads, it's already downloaded. So I won't bother wasting time with that. On Mac, there's these two options. I'm actually not sure what the difference is between them, but I'm sure they'll both do the job. And on Linux, I assume that you'll be able to install it yourself. So just open the executable that you've downloaded. You get some sort of security warning. As long as you're installing it from or downloading it from the official Miniconda and Anaconda websites, it will be safe. So click next. I agree. Just do the defaults. And yeah, just install in the default folder. So if I click next, you'll actually see that I'll get an error, mainly because I actually already have it installed. But you will just click next here and then finish, and then it will be installed. So how do we see if Anaconda is actually installed? Well, let's go to and do your search and search for Anaconda, and you'll see this Anaconda prompt will appear. Right, this is packaged with Miniconda and Anaconda, so whichever one you have, it'll be there. If you install Python with a different method, then this won't be available to you, and you'll have to use the original command prompt and may have to worry about some environment variables. So I'll just make the text a bit bigger here so it's easier to see. So you can see that we are essentially in our home directory here on our computer. This base you can pretty much ignore. Is essentially the base environment for Anaconda where all your base packages are. And to actually check if Python has been installed correctly and to check which version you have, just type in Python -- version. Hit enter and you'll see in my case, I have Python 3.9.1 installed, which is exactly the version that we downloaded. Right. So if you try and do this with the command prompt, just cmd here, you may get an error if your environment variables aren't correctly set, which in my case, I think they are not. So if we type in Python -- version, we'll get Python was not found, and you'll see some other error here. So if you try and run Python with command prompt and the environment variables aren't set, it will actually try and download it from Microsoft Store. So you can basically ignore command prompt and just use Anaconda prompt when you're starting off with Python. It's the easiest way to do it. Yeah. So how do we actually run some Python code, actually get into it? So essentially just run Python. You can see here that we have these three arrows. And whenever you see these three arrows, it means you're in an interactive Python console. All right, and all that means is then you can now run some Python code. And let's do a simple example, 6 + 5. You can see that it's added it to 11. We can have some the variable, we'll set the variable equal to 4, and we'll do value to the power of 3, so 4 cubed, and we'll get 64. So you can actually start doing Python immediately within the console, within your Anaconda prompt like this. It's of course limited to compared to some editors or IDEs, and that's something that will be that'll be covered in other tutorials. In some of the tutorials, we'll be using Jupyter Notebooks, and in some of them, PyCharm, for example, or VS Code. And these are all ways of essentially running Python. Yeah, this is the most basic version, these interactive Python consoles, where you can see that it stores stuff while you're using it. So you can see the value is still 4. So to get out of the console, just do exit with rounded brackets, and you can see we're back in our original base directory. Another very useful thing to know how to do in Anaconda prompt or command prompt or bash is how to check where your packages are and what packages you have installed with Python. So to do this, you can use pip or conda. So I generally use pip, so use pip list, and this will list all of the packages installed with pip in your base environment. And this will change depending on what environment you are in, and there is a video on how to use virtual environments in the repository as well. So you can see all of the different packages we have here. We have Jupyter, we have NumPy, and we should have pip is its own package as well. Because we've installed Python with Anaconda, in our case Miniconda, we can use the conda controls as well. So we can use conda list, and this will install all the packages. This will rather show you all the packages installed with Anaconda and pip. So you can see some of them are installed with Anaconda and some with pip, and pip is represented here by this PyPI word. Another thing that's very useful to know how to do in prompt or in a bash shell is how to change directory. So this is done using the keyword cd followed by a space and then whatever folder you want to go to, essentially. So if we go into documents, we can see now that our directory is actually changed to our documents folder. So we can actually follow this here as well as we do it in our prompt. So we're in our documents folder. Now we want to go into our data analysis folder, right? So in that case, we just go cd data analysis, and how I completed that was I just typed the beginning of the word and then hit tab. So now we're in our data analysis folder, and that's essentially the same as going in here in the Microsoft Explorer. And you can see here we have 2 projects. So if we want to go and see our project 1 or project 2, so let's go into project 2. And you see now we're in our project 2. So we can now, for example, run our scripts or something like this. Now, how do you actually go back out of these directories? Well, you just do cd as before, change directory, ... And you can see now we're back in our data analysis folder as before. So this was a short introduction on how to install Python with Miniconda. There are many other ways of installing Python, of course, but I've found that this is the easiest way, especially as a beginner, to get started, because everything comes out of the box and it isn't as clunky as the full Anaconda installation. So there are more videos on how to use pip, how to use venv, and how to actually get started with different data types and variables in Python on the repository as well. So check them out.